One is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a writer, producer, and of course an entrepreneur, no other than Mr. Joe Owens.
Hello, Daniel.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Joe, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Of course, Joe Owens, born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a very nice cultural city to be from. As I told you before we started, excuse me, I have moved 50 times, 50 times. I am not in witness protection, as some of my friends seem to think I am. Um, but I moved around a lot. I was in the music business for about 25 years, and so that was something and it was a high level, which was great. I got to work with the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Paul Simon, sort of bands of that level, and so I moved around a lot to be near the tours, to be where the tours were starting, to help manage what was on the what we were doing on the road. So it was great. But now I've finally settled down in one place here in Clearwater, Florida, and I write nonfiction. As you can see up there, I've got a few nonfiction books and a kid's book. But I have now actually pivoted, and from here on out, I'm going to be writing only fiction. Um, and I also sometimes work with independent film producers and directors and help them raise some money for their film. So I'm sort of a multitasking kind of guy.
So, Mr. Joe, let's talk about your writing process. Tell us what specific moment, emotion, or gap in knowledge ignited the non negotiable I must write this book feeling.
So I have been writing since I was a child. I mean, literally at 6, 7 years old, I was writing little stories and drawing pictures. For my 13th birthday, my parents gave me a typewriter, which will give you a hint as to just how old I am. But they gave me a typewriter, and I started writing. But I always had a great love of music as well. And so when I got the opportunity, when I got out of college, I got the opportunity to work in the music business. I took it. Now, my college career, my degree is in creative writing and English literature. So my plan was to be a writer when I graduated from college, to write, to teach. But the music business opportunity presented itself, and the next thing I know, it's 25 years later, and I have been working in the music industry, but I've been writing all along, like all the time, even though I was doing something else. And I worked in video games for a while. I worked in sports for a while, but through that whole process, I continued to write. A few years ago, I decided I'm going to do it full time. I'm just going to stop, doing everything else and start writing full time. I took the path of least resistance, at least in my mind, and I wrote a couple of nonfiction books. And you asked about process. For me, the process depends on the type of book. For nonfiction books, um, I outline and rewrite the outline 5 or 6 times, and that's mainly because it's harder to get the flow in a nonfiction book. What should follow what than it is in a fiction book. Excuse me, because a fiction book has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it moves through time. So it's a little bit easier, unless, of course, you're writing Memento, in which it's end, middle, and beginning. But it's easier to sort of write fiction and have a continuity of timeline. But when you're writing a book like Feelin' Groovy, for example, or Rockstar Real Estate Agent, you need to identify what logically follows what went before. Um, but as I mentioned to you as well before we started, I think I'm done with nonfiction books, and the reason is, to write a nonfiction book, you need more than an opinion. You really do need extensive experience in something, or you need a degree, or you need to be an expert. And I think what has happened with Amazon is that now anybody can write a book about anything and publish it. Um, and it's dangerous. For example, with Feeling Groovy, that's a book for baby boomers and seniors that talks to them about health, diet, exercise, wellness. Um, and that's not something that you can take casually. So you have to do extensive research. And in all these books, I know a little bit more about real estate because I was involved in it for a little bit. But in all those books, the research just takes forever because you have an affirmative obligation to be accurate. If you're going to sell somebody a book and you're going to tell them about something, you need to be accurate. Um, when it comes to um, fiction books, I'm a little bit more flexible, and I'm not a pantser. I mean, I have an I have an outline. But one of the things that I do, since I tell the story verbally, and I'll get together with friends, or we'll meet, or we'll have dinner, and I'll tell them the story of my book. And if I can't keep their attention while I'm telling them the story of my book, I better make some
Hmm.
changes, or I'm going to have a terrible book. Um, and so I find that that combination, and then I write extensive character biographies. I will know my character upside down, inside out, and they are real people to me. And the reason that's good is that they will then take the next step. I know what the character will do because I know who they are. So that helps me in maintaining continuity. And what's also great is it's good for twists because if the villain thinks they know the character and then the character does something, the hero does something out of character, then it's easy to trick the villain. And then finally, screenplays. I plan those with military precision. I mean, I have a 4 by 6 foot corkboard. It is divided into 4 sections: Act One, first part of Act Two, second part of Act Two, Act Three. And I've got 40 index cards up there with every beat in the movie written in them and move them around. So um, it really sort of depends the process, the sort of organizational process. It depends on what I'm writing. Um, and I sort of follow those things, and that's natural. And as you well know, you've spoken to so many authors. It's very personal for everybody. I mean, that's it's just something they do almost instinctively.
Mr. Joe Owens, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. How do you distill your book's central message into one actionable phrase before drafting?
So I think um, the movie business has taught us that you need to be able to tell the entire story of your movie in one sentence. So you're not even going to get a chance to pitch it. So you'll see that line on every movie poster. You know, the the young girl was naive and went to Hollywood thinking something would happen, but never expected the outcome. Something like that. And every one of those books, and they call it a log line. So you need the same thing. So if you look at, you've been kind enough to put my books out there. Feeling Groovy is a boomer guide to ageless aging. Rockstar Real Estate Agent is Rockstar Riches Real Estate Niches. And Mind Over Market is Essential Mental Health Practices for Real Estate Professionals, which isn't very sexy, but it was pretty clear. And with the two books, A Boomer Guide to Ageless Aging, I came upon a concept called ageless aging. And essentially, it's rejecting all of the cliches about what it means to get older and planning and executing your own plan. So, this is basically a handbook. I had a heart scare in my late 50s. And in my 60s, or early 60s, I said, I don't want doctors, I don't want medicine. So I started working out more seriously, and now I'm 75 years old and I'm in the gym 4 times a week and I run 2 miles a day and I'm healthy. So I think, I've given a bit of an autobiographical spin on this, but I tried to tell everybody you can grow older without getting old. Rockstar real estate, the same thing. Real estate agents are always looking for something to make them special, and they often don't get it. So I explained to them I spent 25 years in the business watching rock stars find a niche, perfecting it, and then leveraging that into huge thousands of fans and a lifelong career. So what I talk to real estate agents about in that book, Rockstar Riches, Real Estate Niches, sell people luxury homes or help them with their investments or help them with beachfront properties. Find something you can build a reputation around, and then that will bring you business instead of you having to chase business. So I think in all of those things, it very much as you have you know highlighted, you have an idea of what the book is about, and then you go from there. It's like you start out with a central idea, and then you add more and more and more to it to sort of turn it into what you're looking for. Wow, welcome to the jungle. That's um, I released that book with HarperCollins in 1993, and that book was essentially a handbook for rock bands, garage rock bands in 1993 to how to get a recording deal and how to do publicity and how to work with a recording studio. Now, remember, 1993, so that's what, 30, 40 years ago. Um, that book recently started selling again on eBay and for like $50 because there weren't that many of them around. And I was amazed. And I finally found someone who bought it and asked him, why is that book popular again after so many years? And he said, because your book is a snapshot of the music industry at its absolute peak. It's the Roman Empire version of the music business. Giant record companies, huge national record retailers, huge bands playing in stadiums, top 40 hit single radio, album rock radio, big management companies. And he said, you captured the music industry at its pinnacle in your book, and now we use it as a textbook in college, community colleges, and other classes of schools that teach the music business. And they say this is what it was like at the Roman Empire, the absolute pinnacle of it, and this is how we got there today. Then they talk about democratization and Apple, iTunes, and all those things. So I said, so really, I've written a history book, and he said, yes, you've written a history book. But that's really, and it's so now it's selling. I mean, I make no money obviously from it, but I think it's just really fun. They asked me if I should. They suggested I write another one. I said I don't know anything about the music business now, so it would be the worst book in history.
Well, congratulations. You did a history, Mr. Joe. History repeats itself, as they said. Describe your most productive writing conditions like time, place, or tools. Any unusual rituals that unlock flow.
So I'm a habitual guy. I'm best in when I create a format for myself and then stick with it. So I write in the morning, but every morning I'm up, walk my dogs, work out, um, have my gigantic cup of Starbucks tea, and then I start writing. And I write right around 9 o'clock in the morning till lunchtime. So I'll write 2 to 3 hours, and then take a break, walk the dogs, just relax, get a little something to eat, and then decide whether or not I've got more for that day. And if I do, I'll do maybe a couple of more hours. Or if that's it, if I'm done, then I'm done for the day. And I'll move on to the business side of being an author, which used to be what the publisher did, and now it's what the authors do. How are you going to market your book? What about your social media posting? All those things. My first draft is just it's a brain dump. I just put everything out there. So I'm not trying to be specific. I'm not trying to do anything. I just want to get words on paper. Um, some people do that for the whole book, and then they'll go rewrite at the end. I rewrite each chapter because that way, for example, if I send somebody to the attic in chapter 2, I don't want to discover them again in chapter 10, that I've sort of left them in the attic for some reason. So I rewrite after every chapter. Um, then I work with editors, and I sort of work with proofreaders. I hand them off the book because extra sets of eyes are really great, but they know what I'm giving them the book for is Chicago Manual of Style. I'm looking for, you know, punctuation and stuff like that. They know not to offer creative thoughts to me unless I ask for them because that's not their job. Um, Distractions can be tough, um, and we live in a short attention span world, and especially since we a lot of us work on we work on computers and word processors. There's a lot of things, your computer screen stuff pops up, and there's a tendency to want to do stuff. So I'm pretty good with it, but if I find I'm losing focus, then I'll go to a manual typewriter, for example. Like that clack 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 noise tends to keep you focused, and I'll type. Um, and if that's not working, my new thing is a fellow called Augustus Blythe, and Augustus Blythe is much like Sherlock Holmes type character. Um, Different approach to it, but it's Victorian England, so he's solving crimes that have gone unsolved for such a long time. And if I'm writing about him, then I find a fountain pen and some paper really helps me sort of get back in that Victorian England mindset. So um, I'm a creature of habit, uh, and I think that works best for me to sort of keep me focused and let me generate the maximum amount of content. Because again, um, one thing that people sometimes don't think about with authors is we have to produce, we have to be productive. So just like anybody, you go to your job and you have to deliver. You can't just be writing this book for 5 years. And I mean, there are a lot of people who have been doing that, but I don't. J.D. Salinger, who wrote Catcher in the Rye, actually built himself a little cinder block house in his backyard, and in it was a table, a typewriter, a chair, and some paper. And he would get up in the morning, get dressed, he'd go into work, pick up his briefcase, have breakfast with his wife, go out and write. 12 o'clock, stop, have lunch with his wife, go back out at 1 o'clock, write from 1 to 5, and then come home for the day. And he said that if he had writer's block, he would just keep typing his name over and over again because he hated typing his name over and over again. So that's what got him out of writer's block. I don't have writer's block because I'm Irish. So we never run out of stories to tell. And what they say about the Irish is that we're prolific liars with terrible memories. So if you're a liar with a bad memory, you have to write. Otherwise, you're not going to have any friends.
Indeed. Irish pride. Mr. Joe, as a writer, producer, entrepreneur, what are your short term and long term goals?
So I would love. I think Daniel. In these days, I almost have stopped calling myself a writer or an author, and I sort of almost referring to myself now a lot as a content creator. Only because you come up with an idea. Let's go back to Augustus Blythe, for example. Um, Now, Augustus Blythe, I do the research. I have a I could write a book on his biography. He's a real person to me. But for Augustus Blythe, there will be a series of books because the title of his things is The Investigations of Augustus Blythe. So, like Sherlock Holmes, lots of different stories, and there are many, many, many unsolved Victorian era crimes. So there's lots of research I can do. But I think that my goals are to take somebody like Augustus Blythe, write the books, have the character and the books eventually become a 6 episode Netflix series, have there be short stories, use that. I'm actually looking at creating a Victorian era online bookstore called Gutter Lane Books. I have other characters from that era, find other writers, who like writing about the same era, and basically create content, create series that I can bring back to people, and people will look for the next book. I was reading a really interesting article last night about estate writers, and Tom Clancy, for example, who passed away some years ago. Still, he made arrangements for people to continue writing his characters, the characters that they love. The same with Michael Crichton, and so these people have passed on, but they've left these wonderful characters to us. And so I think if you can create something, it's like Andy Warhol said, your job is not, and I'm paraphrasing here, but um, your job is not to live forever. Your job is to create something that does. So I think with all of this, if I can create things that people like enough that someone else will do them after I'm gone, then that's really my target, to enhance people's lives with fun and interesting stuff, whether they be films or television or books or whatever.
A legacy indeed, people. Legacy to the world. Mr. Joe, as a writer, producer, entrepreneur, what would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Steve Martin, the comedian who started on Saturday Night Live eons ago, it seems now. Um, he was asked at one of his events. Someone said, "How do you become successful? How do you become famous?" And in his world, in the entertainment world, the movie television world, you go to cocktail parties and you meet people and you send out your things and you do all those kind of things. And he didn't really like that. And I'm sort of like that as well. That one of the things that I struggle with is doing appearances for books, and go out and meeting people, and I can, but it's not my favorite thing. But he said, rather than doing all of those other things, become so good they can't ignore you, and work on your craft, hone your craft. It's never good enough. And if you find that thing, find your niche and perfect it, be as good at it as you can, people will come to you. You won't have to chase people. You'll attract people. They will want to be part of you. They'll want to do it. So, as much as people really worry about social media and trying to find out the best way to get the algorithm for the new social media, and they spend so much time, spend that time that you're running around doing all these other things, perfecting your craft. Be the best at it as you can and be so good they can't ignore you. And that, to me, was a piece of advice that I embraced, and it's been enormously helpful.
Mr. Joe, very well said. Beautifully articulated. And very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and book 101 review in fifth season as well. Comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in fifth season too. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and mental health 101, Love Letters in third season, Movie 101 review in fourth season, as well as my Music 101 and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Joe, what do you hope readers feel or do differently after turning the last page of all your books?
What I like, that's a great question. What I like people to do, whether it's a nonfiction book, in fact, at the end of Feeling Groovy, I tell them, put it down, go put on sweatpants and sneakers and a t-shirt and go for a run, and then finish the book later, because that's what that book is all about. You'll feel great if you work, and the same with Rockstar. I like people to put the book down and feel that they somehow have either new information from the nonfiction books or a better understanding of some of the the intricacies of human relationships, because a lot of my fiction is character driven. That they understand themselves better, they understand other people better, and they have just overall nonfiction fiction movies that they have a better understanding of who they are, how they fit. That maybe they'll be a little kinder to people. Maybe they'll understand themselves a little better. And I think one of the biggest things right now is that I think people really don't feel as good about themselves as they should. I think a lot of people feel that they're not enough because there's so much competition out there, and they see people doing things in social media, or people having more than they do, and they feel that somehow that lessens them. And I really hope that people, when they read my books and they come out, they realize that they are enough, and that, just as people in the books have had struggles and overcome them, they can do the same thing.
You are enough, people. We are enough. And Mr. Joe Owens, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, well, what I'd like people to do is just keep an eye out. Probably in the next few months, the investigations of Augustus Blythe will be along. And if obviously, if you're a real estate agent, go buy the Rockstar Real Estate Agent. Everything is available on Amazon. And I didn't even mention the kids' books, but the kids' books are really fun. They're original characters, and cute poems. They say that poetry helps young kids read, so 3 to 9 year olds, that would be a helpful book. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and all your listeners. And you have so many podcasts. When do you sleep?
24/7, Mr. Joe. Well, Mr. Joe, people, let's support Mr. Joe Owens, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Joe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.